The Vancouver Canucks continue to add defensive depth at free agency by signing 6'7" defenseman Vincent Desharnais, and Patrik Allvin speaks out on free agency, giving hints on where Jake DeBrusk will play within the lineup next year and why players decided to sign in Vancouver. We'll get into that later on in this episode, but before I start, I just want to say to everyone that isn't subscribed, make sure to go down and hit that subscribe button. We'll be here all off season into next season, giving you updates from around the Canucks. It's been a hectic day from around the league, and you'd never want to miss another episode. But with that, let's hop straight into the first topic today, which is the Canucks sign Vincent Desharnais. Now, Vincent Desharnais is probably a name you know because he played for the Edmonton Oilers, and the Canucks signed him to a 2-year contract, $2 million AAV. When you do take a deep dive on his contract, he's taken up 2.3% of the cap. He does have some signing bonuses that won't affect the cap hit at all, but if you do end up trading this guy at some point, it's going to be less dollars going to another team, so it makes it easier to trade. But Vincent Desharnais is a big boy, and that's the best way to put it. 6'7", 230 pounds almost. He's 28 years old, and he's a 7th round pick that has carved out quite a NHL career for himself over the past 2 years. We've seen with the Edmonton Oilers 1 goal, 10 assists for 11 points with this team. He had 122 block shots, 133 hits, and he played 16 games for them in the playoffs. And just Griffin, what's your thoughts on bringing in yet again another big defenseman on the Canucks back ends?
I love it that Vancouver knew that they needed to beef up their defensive core, and they went out and did it. You have guys like Hronek and Hughes and Soucy and Myers, where they're not the biggest guys, so they're going to lock things down with their reach and with scoring. But then you have the big boys that are coming in that are going to hold it down physically. We see that they're going to be just a nice wrecking crew of a line. They're almost going to be like the new Bash Bros if they end up playing together. So I think they're going to be nice to have those big guys there where they can rack up the hits, and Vancouver is going to have that physical identity like we've been talking about all day with these signings, and even with their draft picks. They have been going out and getting these big body guys because they knew that Nikita Zadorov was a great asset to the team. He's now gone, so you have to fill in that spot, and sometimes you need 2 guys to fill that spot. So they went out and did that, and our defensive core is looking a much stronger now that we have a guy like Desharnais in there. He was someone who, when I was looking at free agents, I briefly saw his name and I was like, oh, maybe he would fit in well with Vancouver, but I didn't think he was possible to go get, or that fans might have wanted him. But now that he is here and seeing all these guys go off the board, it's great that we were able to get a big guy like him to another one of these short-term, small price tag contracts that aren't going to be too big when it comes to re-signing him or getting rid of him, like you said. And it has a possibility of extending him to an even more generous contract if he does well under this smaller one.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing, is they're going out and getting these contracts. I think Allvin and co kind of realized they can't be giving these players big contracts like we've seen with Ilya Mikheyev, where you had to ship out picks to get rid of the contract. But the Canucks back end looks so much better now. Even the top 6, I mean, you have Quinn Hughes and Hronek, Soucy and Myers. You picked up Forbert, you picked up a guy like Desharnais, you still have Mark Freeman, you have Noah Juleson, you have DPD in the minors, you have Jet Wu, who was just re-signed. This entire team is starting to come around, and I think Patrik Allvin's done great in free agency. Obviously, this is not going to be set on what they've run, but with Vincent Desharnais getting that 2-year contract, $2 million, not a two-way, I do feel like he knocks Noah Juleson out for that final spot in the top 6 of the defensemen. You have a 6'4" and a 6'7" defenseman. On that third pairing, you have another 6'7" defenseman in Tyler Myers. Soucy's not a small boy. This overall makes me excited, and just seeing how this team has changed from forwards to getting some depth pieces to picking up new defensemen. What's the biggest standout on this defensive end, and who do you think is going to surprise the most people this year?
I think Derek Forbort is in a very good position to really surprise a lot of people. You see there where that's not the definite defensive lineups, but you're not going to pay a guy 1.5 or 2 million to be on your 4th pairing. So they're going to get more playing time, of course. So you're not going to have those guys be jumping in as much, I don't think. But I think definitely Derek Forbort is a very good pickup. I think he's going to excel very well with Vancouver from a physical standpoint. And I think as well, like, we have Hronek coming back. I think Hronek had a great season. He's going to build on it even more. So I think we might even see a tandem where the Norris race might come down to 2 teammates. And I think that would be really cool to see who gets the edge. Obviously, Quinn Hughes is the better defenseman in most cases. But I think it would be a very interesting conversation to see Hronek kind of make it a more interesting race, not only with the league, but also with his own teammate.
And the thing is, too, the Canucks are definitely not done. They're still going to add depth at forward, depth at defenseman, sign some two-way contracts. So we might even have a world where a guy like Derek Forbort could come in as the seventh defenseman, depending on who they pick up. But I do think this is what the Canucks will start day one with, just the top six guys here. Friedman and Noah Juleson in there as extras. So things are going to get interesting, and we also get some quotes from Patrik Allvin on some of these pickups, and that's the second topic today on how he speaks out on the free agency. Now, there is a couple quotes here I'm going to go through. The first one was Patrik Allvin speaking to the media about Jake DeBrusk. Jake is coming from a program there in Boston. We like to speed his versatility. He can play both special teams. He got experience in the playoffs. I've seen it over the years. Jake has consistently been able to elevate his game in the playoffs. He's a reasonable two-way guy. And unless Tocchet finds the different line combinations, I envision him starting with Petey. So we kind of get that sense that Patrik Allvin knew that this was a pickup to play with Pettersson. He wanted to get him new line mates. And what's your thoughts on him possibly joining Petey on that second line?
I love it. I think Petey is definitely in need of someone to really work well off of and a more consistent line mate partner. We saw with injuries that the Vancouver Canucks had to shuffle a lot of things around with their lineups, especially in the postseason when Petey did suffer the most from not being productive. So if you have a guy like DeBrusk who can stay healthy all season, who can stay on that line with him all season consistently, I think Petey is only going to be that much better. And we could see another triple-digit point season from Petey himself and potentially a career year from DeBrusk playing with Petey. So I think these guys are going to feed very well off each other. They're going to be a very complementary combo. And whoever else is on that line, they could be like that Garland-Joshua line where whoever is third on that line just might make that the best line in hockey.
Yeah, and the biggest thing was I was kind of looking at his stats coming from the Bruins, coming over to the Vancouver Canucks, and it kind of looks eerily similar to when JT Miller came over. It was a guy playing in the middle six, in the bottom six, not being as productive as he could be, joins the Vancouver Canucks and explodes for 100 points. So maybe we will see a second coming of this with Jake DeBrusk playing with Petey, and hopefully that gets both players going. But we also have another quote from him, and it was talking about Sherwood on when he came over and what he looked in. He said, for me, it was just about the identity and identifying the best fits, and that was Sherwood talking about Vancouver being the right fit. Obviously, I got close up in the playoffs when it was all said and done, and what excited me as part of this group, it has a lot of special things brewing, so I definitely want to be a part of that. And then we had Allvin kind of speak on this and saying how he looked like the perfect fit. They wanted to kind of get him because of his physicality. And what's your thoughts on Sherwood just saying that he thinks this is a special group and just everything he talked about identity?
I think he's absolutely right. Like you said, JT Miller went from being a middle six guy to being one of the top scorers on this team. Vancouver is a team where the team chemistry is so good and that these guys continue to have career seasons. We saw at least 6 Vancouver players have career seasons this year. You have Joshua, Garland, Boeser, Miller, Hughes, Pettersson, all these guys had amazing seasons. Then you had Arthur Shelos break out. So this is a team where if the team chemistry is great and everyone is doing their individual job and stepping up not only for themselves but for each other, you're going to have a very, very special group here. And I think that's what Patrik Allvin wants. He knew his back was going to be up against the wall along with the Canucks management where they're not going to have too much money to work with. So you don't want to overpay guys, especially one person when they already did pay Pettersson last season. So if they have that where they want to make sure they invest in Pettersson and in Hughes, surround them with the best players around them, even if it's not for the longest time, but ensuring that they consistently have players around them where if they have short-term deals, they can extend them into longer-term deals to make sure that they play with these stars. I absolutely love it for Vancouver. I am just eagerly excited for next season. I can't wait to dive in. I'm so excited I can barely speak right now.
And the biggest thing is we do get some final points from him as well. He confirmed that Brock Boeser is doing well in his recovery and expected to join the team for training camp. He said that every player that he spoke to this morning brought up the fans and how alive the arena was during the playoffs. I thought that was an awesome quote with him just bringing that up. He talked about teams feeling good and then use their money the right way on free agency. July 1st is an interesting day, but it's a scary day. I think we're pretty good here today in terms of managing our money and getting hopefully good value out of the players we got. And I just kind of wanted to point out that one thing. What's your thoughts on all these players that he called up between Forbort? You have guys that he just recently picked up in Vincent Desharnais, going out and picking up forwards as well. What's your thoughts on them all bringing up the fans as a part of why they wanted to come here?
I think it's amazing. I think it's showing that Vancouver is one of these Canadian cities where, yes, you talk about Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa being in the nation's capital, and Edmonton, of course, because you have Connor McDavid there, but no one really talks about Vancouver being Canada's team and being out there in the West Coast, the furthest west you can go. Those fans are super passionate about hockey. I'm sure that even if there was a team in Newfoundland, you guys would be going nuts out there just because you have a professional team out there where you can rally the community and the city behind them. So players want to play there. We saw how electrifying it was throughout the whole season and into the playoffs where the fans were rowdy. They were happy. Yes, it sucks when the team sucks, but it's amazing when the team is great. And we've seen that in the highs and the lows with this franchise and their fan base. And I think this fan base is now going to be very, very proud to call themselves Canucks fans because I think we have a very good shot here at becoming Canada's new team that everyone thinks is Canada's team.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. I mean, this Canucks team is really building towards making another run. They made the second round. They made it to Game 7. And I think the players they are acquiring, plus whoever they pick up with the next couple of days into next trade deadline, is going to really push this team. But what's your guys' thoughts on all this? What's your thoughts on Vincent Desharnais coming in? Where do you think he fits in the lineup? What's your thoughts on Patrik Allvin's comments? Are you super stoked for next season? Because I know both of us are. Let us know down in the comments, and you could be featured on the next episode of Comments of the Day, and that's our next topic. So when you look at the comments of the day today, we have two. It's be honest with yourself, said your channel is a gift to the Canucks fans, thank you. And the second comment, both comments were so nice I had to do it twice. Good update, guys, my go-to channel for Canucks news. Shout out you guys, and like I said, if you wanted to leave a comment down below, you could be featured like both of these people did today on the next episode as Canucks Digest Comments of the Day. While you're down there, leave a like, share this with your friends. We're trying to reach 4,000 by the end of free agency, so make sure to go down and hit that subscribe button. But I've been your host, Mark, with my co-host Griffin. Take care.